And we are back, and after analyzing a bit the geographical area of the most populous areas of the world, it is very understandable that the third part of the ships, the Yohanan, he saw a very important vision, and must understand when he had this vision, he was obviously protected in a camp. That's another factor not shown in the Bible, but a person must understand what it means visions and what it means dreams. So then we understand that he was in a very protected area. He was in a camp because the vision came in very clearly and it was protected by the presence of the Creator himself. So then from this point we can understand then the third part of the ships. And then there is this area where Yohanan then he explains what he saw. Obviously he could not have the technical term during the time because it was not explained. During sometimes the visions, they don't get the understanding of the future events because those can't be revealed before the time. But what he saw was like a lamp that was burning coming from the heaven. It doesn't take much for a person to understand that it was a rocket in our days. So then, with this understanding, he mentioned in a sect area of the understanding of these third parts, and a third part, and then a third part. There is an area that it says 10 times the third part, and third part. So then we understand that the part of it that came with it, then the relation is regarding the ships. And then it is on the 8th chapter, on the 9th verse, and a third part of the creatures in the sea died, and then also the third part of the ships were destroyed. So then after observing the map very closely, the area around India, around China, around the Malaysia area, and those areas north of Australia, that's going to be the third part of the world, the most populous area of the world. And we can understand from the time that Yohanan saw this vision and the third part of the ships, he has to have a very strong reason for these huge amount of ships to be destroyed. So then the blast obviously is going to be very near the ocean, because they have to be in areas where they're going to be in transit nearby the area or in ports. And the most populous areas that we know of that has lots of ships would be China, India, and the areas of the ocean. So then we begin to understand the development of what is going on in the world. So then from this understanding of the revelation as layers of a spiritual understanding regarding a specific physical area of the earth related with a bomb, so then we understand the rest of the spiritual movements of the evil anointings. So then it's truly starting making sense. So then people can start understanding from the time of Yahshua up to our time in what Israel is doing. Because if a person understands from the time of the Moses' time, and then Yahshua's time, and we understand that after a couple thousand years then the time is expiring, we must understand what it means of the significance of the 8th chapter and the destruction of ships. And then with the nuclear blast, and then causing, for instance, the water to become bad, the fountains becoming bad, and then the third part also of the lunar view becoming covered, and then the sun becoming covered, and then the stars becoming covered at night. Boy, that gives a very clear understanding of a nuclear blast. And then with it comes the smoke from the pit. The time of the nuclear action of the nuclear blast then is going to come, then the evils behind it coming out of the blast as it was a pit being opened. In the spiritual sense, they come out, the influx of demons coming out of them, those areas, because there is not only an area of this pit, there are other areas of the pit, and those there are related in the spirit but in the physical from an area. So then put those together. It's becoming more and more clearer. Take for instance the computer and then place in the computer the populous areas of the world in the ships. You're going to find India, China, and then the North Islands of Australia. And that area over there is the third most popular and populous area of the world. So then we can understand the third part, and third part. Not only this, we understand that China is becoming a very influential country in the world. There is also India becoming very influential, and also Iran and Israel. So then we must be sound-minded and properly doctrined in the Torah and the understandings thereof, so then we can prepare ourselves and prepare the future, because these are the prophecies so people they can prepare themselves. And we understand that the servants, the set apart people, they should be in their camps. So then what Moses said then fits, what Yahshua did regarding also the sayings of Moses also fit, and then the first portion came as Yahshua said he would come, he did. He said that Ruach HaKodesh would come, and did, and the spiritual line also came, and they, in fact the priests, they were maintaining this spiritual line for a long time, until around 1009, when the world then made a declaration that they want to have Satan in line with it, to give them what they want. So this is when grace became a license to sin, mostly. But this near in line with his influence is going to end, and we must prepare ourselves for it. Please stay tuned, much more coming up. And other areas of revelation, for instance, then they become very clear, clearer and clearer. But the main event of the times obviously is the transition from the ending of the time period, prophetic time period from Yahshua, and then a couple thousand years there is a reduction of the time, and there is wrath coming, vengeance. And then from there we understand from the 20th chapter, and then that's why when it was put together in the spirit, and then later it was the physical. We tended to do it reversed. We tended to make it physical first, and then we tended to make it mystical later. It never works, because this is exactly what the pagan people do. They only have this paganism, crazy ideas of heaven, and first they try to use these as the physical and then the mystical. But in the word, it's contrary. It shows first, obviously, the place where vengeance would come from, and then the relation of these places, the Ruach HaKodesh's places in Kadosh Kadoshim in the camps, and then the relations, each of those, and they're related with heaven, and the same line of vision. And then later then comes the results of the physical part done in the world. And then comes a portion of it hail, a portion of it then of course famine, and then later on grain is going to be very scarce, very expensive to buy grain, but not to hurt the oil, not to be influential on the oil. Then the oil and then other areas would be somewhat in abundance, but then grain would be very scarce, and those are demons behind it, and those are governed from other countries' influences. That's when they come, for instance, locusts, as they come as creatures created by Yahweh himself, so Yohanan can understand where they are coming from and the purpose of them, because they are entering those leaders of the world, and in turn they make those areas come to existence. And then there are famines, because other areas they're going to be in control, and then there's going to be a drought, a very severe drought. In other areas going to have lots of rain and then ice and then hail. And then some areas going to have mountains with so much water, and then mudslides, and then mountains they were no more. And then there were islands, and islands they were there, and then they were no more as it was cast out. But those wordings that Yohanan uses, it's because he did not have the technical terms of the future. Please stay tuned.